The U.S. Data and Statistics website states that of people who are 25 years or older, 55% are high school graduates or higher. Give the probability of the indicated events. First, you want to find out the probability that randomly selected 3 people, 25 years or older, are high school graduates or higher. Let's say that G represents a high school graduate or higher. Now we want to find the probability of selecting 3 people, and each of one of them are going to be a high school graduate or higher. That is the probability that we selected the first person, a high school graduate or higher, and the second one, a high school graduate or higher, and the third one, a high school graduate or higher. Now we have to think about the independency of the events. Since we are given a probability in this question, that means we don't need to think about the independency. The probability of selecting a high school graduate or higher is 0.55 or 55%. Since it's given, I don't have to think about the independency of the events. In the usual events, I will use the multiplication rule, which states that the probability of the first event and the second event and the third event is the probability of the first event times the probability of the second event, given that the first event had occurred already, times the probability of the first event, given that the first event and the second event happened already. So this is just to account for independency. In our case, the probability of the selecting a high school graduate the second time, given that we selected a high school graduate the first time, is the same as the probability of selecting a high school graduate or higher the first time, which is 55%. Since it's given, we assume independency. Same for this probability here. This is the same as selecting a high school graduate or higher. So the answer here is simply going to be 0.55 times 0.55 times 0.55, and we are able to assume independency because we are given the probability here from the beginning. If this is not the case, we cannot assume independency. If we're given the population that we select from, then we have to account for when we select the first event and the second event to compute the probability of the second event and the third event. So if you multiply the 3 numbers together, you're going to get this probability right here. So that is the answer for the first part of the question. The second part of the question, what is the probability of randomly selecting 5 people, 25 years or older, who aren't high school graduates or higher? Since the probability of selecting a high school graduates or higher is 0.55, that means the selecting a person who is not a high school graduate or higher is going to be the complement of this event. And we know that to find the complement of the event, you're going to say, or the probability of the complement of the event, you're going to say this is 1 minus the probability of the event. So in this case, this is equal to 1 minus 0.55, which is equal to 0.45. So that is the probability of selecting a person who not high school graduate or higher, which is the complement of selecting a person who is a graduate or high school graduate or higher. Now that we have the second probability, we are able to compute the second probability using the same approach as the first probability. So selecting 5 people who are not high school graduates or higher is basically the probability of selecting the first person who is not a high school graduate or higher, and the second one is not a high school graduate or higher, and the third one is not a high school graduate or higher. The fourth one is not a high school graduate or higher. The fifth one is not a high school graduate or higher, which is equal to the probability of selecting the first one who's not a high school graduate or higher times the probability of selecting the second one who's not a high school graduate or higher, given that the first one was selected not a high school graduate or higher. And again, since we have the probability already, we can assume independency, and we can just say we can use the simple multiplication rule here, which is basically the product of all of these probabilities together. So just because the events are independent, we are able to use this simple product rule. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that is equal to 0.45 times itself 5 times, or you can say raised to the 5th power. So I'm going to compute this right here. This is equal to 0.45 raised to the 5th power because we multiplied by itself 5 times, and that should be the probability that you're looking for. So I hope this video helped you understand this question, and if you have any other questions, please let me know. I'll see you in a different video.